Good morning, and welcome to the first and only Stronger Combined Results Conference. My name is Robert Boyer, and I will be your moderator during today's conference. I am a researcher for RISE Research Institutes of Sweden in Gothenburg. I am on a team called Sustainable Business. The Stronger Combined project was one of the very first projects that I worked on when I moved to Sweden in 2019. How lucky was I that I, an American just moving to Sweden, had a chance to work on a project with not only Swedes, but also Belgians, Dutch, Scottish, Germans, Danish, Norwegians. Am I missing anyone? Our partner meetings are an accent impressionist's dream come true. The Stronger Combined project, as I see it, is an opportunity for places outside big city centers to develop mobility solutions that make sense for their context and their local populations. Early in 2022, my colleague Stephen Saracini and I completed a report on the state of knowledge of mobility as a service, or MAS. I highly recommend you read it. It is part of the deliverables for this project, and we have to get 2,000 people to read it. MAS, for those of you who are unfamiliar, is supposed to be the Netflix of mobility, allowing a traveler to pay for, get tickets, book seats, and everything else for all modes of transportation: bus, train, bike share, car rental, all using a single smartphone app, making multimodal travel seamless and more efficient. The report that we wrote involved a near comprehensive review of the academic literature on mobility as a service. We read and analyzed nearly 100 articles, and we discovered, among other things, that mobility issues in places like Skive in Denmark, Alveringhem in Belgium, the Highlands of Scotland, Karlstad in Sweden, small towns, rural areas, and tourist regions are rarely addressed by transportation researchers. We discovered, in other words, that the state of the art of MAS is overwhelmingly big city urban. This means that without the Stronger Combined project, transportation consultants, European and other national policymakers, and transport geeks around the world might have otherwise understood MAS and combined mobility from an unfortunately narrow and almost exclusively big city, urban, and European perspective. This might mean that future research, future solutions, future policies might be designed for big cities and never applied in rural, small town, and tourist regions, or applied inefficiently in those places. Today, we will be presenting the results of the Stronger Combined project, which is in one sense, a response to the knowledge gap that Stephen and I published earlier. Today, we will reveal what types of technical, social, design solutions work and do not work in the places that the academic literature traditionally overlooks. Having spent time in the past 3.5 years corresponding with all the living labs, learning about your struggles through the COVID pandemic, I can say I am inspired by the creativity, care, and patience of the professionals working with combined mobility transportation on the ground. I hope that everyone watching will feel the same way too. Before we get into the presentations, we need to offer some recognition to the people and institutions that got us here. Firstly, thank you to Interreg North Sea and the European Union for funding Stronger Combined. Thanks to the professionals at Lindholmen Conference Center here in Gothenburg, Sweden, for helping us with the space and food. Thank you to our coordinating partners. Hey, Stephen, we hear you. Thank you to our coordinating partners at Region Värmland for taking care of the challenging and not so glamorous administrative work, specifically to Sebastian T. Hannebo for his strong and always smiling leadership. Thanks to Ida Tiverman from Region Värmland, who also coordinated the results conference and coordinated communication with all the partners. Thanks also to Ole Carlsen and his crew from OppTV for helping us broadcast this conference today. Today, we have 6 hybrid sessions, including technical solutions for combined mobility, mobility hubs with a special focus on e-bikes. We then have a discussion panel to follow up the discussion, the presentations on mobility hubs and e-bikes. We have a presentation on interoperability and multimodal transportation in rural areas. We have a presentation on the challenges of COVID-19 to transportation systems. And then we have a concluding session on marketing transportation solutions to special populations. The sessions will be a blend of live presentations and remote presentations. We'll have some videos, we'll have some discussions, as I mentioned. And the online presentations will be happening both in this room and around Northern Europe. I will offer brief remarks at the beginning of each session, and anyone participating in this conference, whether you're sitting in this room or in another country or on another planet, can participate in these sessions by leaving questions and comments in the Zoom chat. Your questions will be moderated by our technical staff and our colleagues, and we will also be interacting with participants online from time to time using Mentimeter, an interactive polling software. So, that said, this brings us to our first interactive portion of the day. For those of you that have used Menti, this should probably be very simple, but you can use your smartphone and scan the QR code that you can see right now. This will bring you to the Mentimeter website, and you can enter the code that you see on the screen, and I believe you can also see in the chat. And you'll see a question there, a very simple question. Go ahead and respond to it. We want to know what country you are representing today, so we get a feel for where our audience is coming from. For some people, this might be a complicated question. Maybe you're from lots of different places. Maybe you have multiple national identities. That's great. Maybe write both questions. I see we have a North Korea representative. That is hard to believe, but wow! If we've reached North Korea, we've really made a dent here in our project. So we should feel proud of that. I see Sweden is in the lead. I know there are Belgians here in the audience. Come on, Belgium! Let's load up your answers. Okay, we have some Germany. Germany is here. Germany is in Germany because I know that our German partners aren't in the studio. And I think that we have a few more minutes. So why don't you, let's get settled. Go ahead and answer this question. And I think we will return in not so long. Actually, I'm going to ask our producer. Should we just move forward with the first session? Okay. All right. So let's take. Let's take a few more seconds to answer this question if you haven't done it yet, and then we're going to move forward and actually begin with our first session. So our first session of the Stronger Combined Results Conference will be about technical solutions. In the past decade, technical solutions in mobility have erupted, in large part due to near universal internet access and smartphone technology. Access to data and advances in data security, both for individual travelers and for mobility service providers, allows us to imagine realistic transportation solutions that might have been considered science fiction only a decade or two ago. We will learn about some of these exciting solutions in this session. We begin with Per Zetterman, who will be joining us on Zoom from Stockholm, Sweden. Per is a project manager from Hallandstrafiken, a regional transportation authority on the west coast of Sweden. And they are beginning to experiment with ID-based ticketing and the BOB standard. I'll let Per describe what BOB means. But before we introduce Per, we have another interactive Menti question. So we'll let Per get ready. But our next Menti question. Okay, there it is. Have you ever used a smartphone application to combine 2 or more forms of transportation? Okay, so we have actually quite a few. I was really interested to see this. I actually, to be honest, didn't expect there to be so many yeses. So that actually brings us to a follow-up question where we're going to hold you accountable to your affirmative responses. And that is, if yes, what app have you used? So go ahead, and I think you can just type this directly in there, and it'll show up as a word cloud. Now, we're about to hear from some real experts in mobility technology, and I think from my perspective, you know, I interact mostly with mobility through a smartphone app, but they are a level. They're actually behind these applications. They make the magic happen by taking advantage of data and data collection and open data. So I expect to be wowed and impressed by what they have to present. And so we have a few answers in here. SE, which is the Stockholm area mobility app. Go High, no surprise there. Go High, I know, is the app that's used in the Highlands and Islands of northern Scotland. And then I see what are some obviously Dutch and Belgian apps. Travis, I think, is also in Stockholm. Google Maps, of course. Samtrafiken to go. Wonderful. Okay, so we have a seasoned audience that have used these smartphone apps. And now, thank you for interacting. I see a few more answers coming in. Great. So let's move forward. Now we're going to hear from Per. And Per, can you hear us?
Yes. Can you hear me?
We can hear you, and we can see you. Per, you and I have been meeting over the past few years, and I've always noticed the guitar on the back of your wall.
Yeah.
And so are you a guitarist?
Yeah, I'm an amateur guitarist. Yes.
Yeah, but it's a nice background. It's something that I associate with you.
Yes.
Yeah.
I have to have them somewhere. I think there are 5 guitars in this room. Oh, it's 7 guitars in this room. I know.
7 guitars. Wow. Oh, very cool. Well, we've actually programmed into the schedule today that you were going to play a song for us. You don't know that, but if our audience stays tuned to the end of the program, they'll get to hear Per play a song, and we also have the Stronger Combined song and dance number. But you'll have to wait. We're very excited to present that. So Per, welcome. We're excited to hear from you, and the floor is yours.
Thank you. Yes, I'm working for Hallandstrafiken. That's south in Sweden. At the moment, I'm sitting in Stockholm, though, but I'm gonna share my screen now, and I'm gonna tell you about what we have done. In Halland, then we have started to introduce ID-based traveling, and we are using a Swedish standard called BOB. BOB is Swedish for biljett och betal. It's ticket and payment standard. And BOB has been around only for a few years, so some regions have implemented it, but I think we were the first in south of Sweden to introduce ID-based traveling with BOB. So what is this all about then? Well, I tell you a little bit about the standard first. The BOB standard is really built for interoperability. Before BOB, there was really awkward or really difficult if you wanted to viewer sales channel and you wanted to sell the region's ticket. It was really hard because then you had to know the pricing, the zonal system, how the ticket should be technically, because if you wanted it to validate correctly in a front office device. So that's the reason why this standard was built, and that is make it easy for one party to sell another party's tickets, and you can around Stockholm in the regions there you have in one single Aztec code there is up to 8 or 9 completely different tickets. And the sales channel doesn't have to know anything about it. It's and they validate perfectly. And the Bob standard is really based on public international standards. So there's nothing proprietary about it. So it's all public standards. It just says what standard to use and how to use that public standard. So all JSON and REST APIs. So basically, it's the same type of what is used by Facebook or Twitter or internet bank. And as I said, one system doesn't need to understand the other system's products, nor the zonal system. So, and I'll show you a little bit how that works. And it's the same for sales channel. You can have a sales channel that doesn't have any ticketing system connected to it. It could be Google would start to sell tickets via Bob APIs. And each system then only validates its own product. So if I'm a sales channel, I ask for an SL product. SL sends me whatever gibberish. I just put it in the Aztec code in a way that SL later on in a validator, in a gate, can see, is there any SL ticket here? Yeah, there's an SL ticket. And then it validates its own product. And there might be a bunch of other tickets in the same Aztec code, but SL don't look at them. SL only look for its own products. And the standard also have high security. Years ago, you had to use symmetric keys because asymmetric keys that are much better to use and much safer. They you use a lot of process capacity, and it wasn't there 10 years ago, but nowadays. So now we use asymmetric keys, public and private keys. It's very secure. It's very easy to work with because there's no security with the public key. ID-based traveling, then, what is that? ID-based is also known to some as account-based traveling. It means that you have a bearer of some type. Very often it is a smart card, but it could be a wearable, a ring, or a Fidesmo watch, or whatever. On this bearer, there is a unique identifier, and that identifier could refer them to ticket or a prepaid credit account. You have some credit, or you have a credit, or it could be seat reservation, or bike, or conference room, whatever. So the actual bearer doesn't. If you only have the bearer, you have no clue what rights you have, because the rights are centrally in the different systems. So it's the systems that it's more or less like your debit card. If you try to use your debit card ATM and get money, if there is no, if you can't connect to the central account, you don't get any money because there's nothing on the card. It doesn't say how much money you have. So it's more or less the same. So how does this work then? This is more or less Bob. If you have a sales channel on the left there, and someone wants to buy a ticket from the PTA, then the sales channel connects to the PTA and then asks for a ticket, could be a single ticket. And within the Bob specifications, there are processes for authentication, so the PTA will authenticate that it really is the same channel. It's the right one. And the session doesn't have to know if there is an adult, or it can, session can say, I have a 16-year-old here that wants the ticket. And then the PTA can say, oh, then you have a reduced ticket. Well, after the session has contacted the PTA gives an offer. So the session gets an offer, adult single ticket for 30 crowns. And then the session can make a decision to if it wants it or not. And if you would have an app and an ASCII code, then the PTA would send a digital ticket to the same channel. But if it's ID, then as I said, the bearer only is a unique ID on the bearer. So the session will say, yeah, I want a ticket. Here is the ID that I want you to connect the ticket to. So on the right side, on the PTA will then connect the ID to ticket. And when that ID turns up then in that PTA's traffic, they can check and see, yeah, this ID is allowed to travel. And as you see at the bottom of this picture is Samtrafiken, and there is Samtrafiken is responsible for having an inventory. So all parties that are involved in the Bob ecosystem can store their public keys there, and all the data there is public for anyone. And why are we interested in Halland and in ID? Well, if you compare it to an ASCII code, for example, you can have unlimited number of tickets. Because since you don't store anything on the bearer, you just give the ID to different systems. So you can do that unlimited times. And we have, I have worked with something called Movingo also. And Movingo is the regions around Stockholm. And there you can have up to 9 tickets, and then it starts to get really a lot of information for one ASCII. But you don't have any limitations when you use ID. Also, if you have a Bob ID bearer, you can use that in any Bob system that accepts ID. Bob ID bearers. So you don't have to get one card for Västtrafik, one card in Stockholm, one card in Malmö, and so forth. Also, post-processing is very easy. With if you can have an ID, you have registered your bank card, then you just travel. And at the end of the day, the PTA can see, well, you travel this time of the day, then it's high traffic, so then we deduct this amount of money, or if it's low traffic, we deduct less. And if we see, well, you travel so much, now we don't deduct single tickets, we just cap it. And one day price for one day ticket, and after a week, you can cap for a week. So, and also, not everyone wants the ticket in the mobile phone. So nowadays, I think 90% or something like that have their tickets in their phone, but there's still some people that don't want it in the phone. It could be elderly or kids or yeah, there is a number of people that they want to have the card. It's also easy to bundle offers if you have ID. If you have a sales channel, say that you go into to site to buy tickets to Lady Gaga, so you register your ID there, and once you buy the ticket to Lady Gaga, the ID is just sent to the arena. So when you show up at the arena, the gates are open because they recognize the ID. And at the same page, maybe you also have the possibility to say, I want to go to the Lady Gaga concert with public transport. So you buy a ticket there with the local PTA. And all the sales channel have to do is send the ID to the local PTA ticketing system. and then you're recognized on the bus or tram when you go to the Lady Gaga. And you also want to prepay for 2 beers because there will be a pause. And once you've done that, the sales system can just send the ID to prepaid beers to the point of sales terminal where they hand out the beers. So if you're interested in mass, this ID and Bob should be very interesting because it's really easy to bundle offers with the different modes of transport. So there are cons, of course. You can, if you look at into this card, for example, that's the beer. You can see what rides you have. You can see a beer and Lady Gaga and so forth. You have to then go online, either via an app or via internet. If everything was in an app, you would have seen that. So that's a con. And also there is the cost for this beer. If you download an app, it doesn't cost you anything. But if it's a smart card, you probably have to pay for it. So that's also a drawback. Well, we implemented this. So what findings do we have then? Well, the feedback from the travelers is that they don't see much difference since before, because they had cards before, but those cards were MyFair Classic, where you actually store the tickets on the card. So you do local validation. But they don't know if it's local validation or if it's online validation. So for them, it wasn't much of a difference. One difference they saw was that it's instant ticketing. So if they sit at the internet, they have a voucher, they use the voucher, then they can just open the door, walk over the street and take the bus, and it's instant. Another finding is that the system needs online, of course, and we are at the moment implementing whitelists. So if an ID enters the bus needs to contact to see if there any ticket connected to this. So if it's not online, then it can look in the local whitelist. But that means that these whitelists needs to be updated very often, like every minute or so. Also, if the sales channel has no idea of the tax, or if there are zones, or if it's what the tax, or how the ticketing system works, then the sales channel needs to say, I'm going to enter your region at this point, and then I'm going to leave your region at this point, or the triple stop at this point. So we had to create fixture border stops in order to the region to know where the trip really enters into that region. And that was mainly because of Skåne having, they don't have a ticket with zones, they have a ticket with the radius. You also get easier reconciliation economically between parties, because before it was really common that the sales channel just created the ticket texture, and then at the end of the month it said to the region that, okay, I sold 2,000 tickets, and the region had no idea. Now the region knows, because for every ticket sold, it's a ticket fetched by the region, so they see how many that was fetched. We also see that it's really high security. We have no frauds with the cards. With the MyFair Classic cards in Sweden, there were frauds all the time. Not big ones. Like Stockholm is really huge. They had like 40 cards a week that was frauded. It's no money to talk about, but it's really annoying and bad PR. And also we found a number of stuff that was lacking in the standard. For example, if a trip starts in Sweden and stops outside Sweden, Copenhagen, for example, then that should be VAT-free. No one had thought about that in the standard. We also saw that there is a need, or yeah, it would be nice if you have registered your card or your ID in a region, and then you have a prepaid account there, so prepaid money that could be used in another region. So that is also change request to the standard. So there are a number of change requests to the standard because we see there are needs that are not fulfilled at the moment. Okay, so that was more or less what I was aiming to tell you. This fall, Bob is being rolled out in all of Sweden now. Either it's implemented in regions, or they are implementing it, or they have announced that they will implement Bob. And this fall, got clear that Estonia will use Bob as their national ticketing standard, and Bob is already implemented in Iceland. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you. Oh, thank you, Per.
Stop sharing them.
We have a few minutes for questions.
Yes.
I'm not sure if there are any questions from the audience, but I have a few questions. My first question is, who do you think benefits most from ID-based ticketing? Who are the most important stakeholders here?
I think the example I gave in the Lady Gaga concert, you could do a lot of that type of bundled offers. That hasn't really, it's technically been possible to do that with the Bob standard now for a couple of years, but no one has done it yet. And I think that's because these implementations are so new that they haven't had time to do that. But I think I think for mass, that would be perfect, because then you can bundle, you can be a free sale channel, and then you can bundle whatever mode of transport you want. Mm-hmm. If you have a contract with them, of course. So I think it would be beneficial for mass, I'd say.
Wow. Well, we'll have to get in touch with Lady Gaga's people to see if they would accept the Bob standard in their ticket sales. But more specifically, do you think that this seems to be something right now that is being worked on with public transit authorities and public transit operators? Is this something that is the Bob standard something that they're inviting? Are they excited about this?
Yeah, I think so, because they're really fed up with the old systems they have. The systems delivered by Cubic or Vix or whatever, those big companies, because Bob is really a standard that you can take any IT consultant firm that can start to build on that, because if they have built a site for some company selling stuff at the internet, they will recognize all the technology that is used, because it's all non-proprietary public standards. They recognize these. It's REST APIs, and so I think that's really what these PTAs are excited about, and also that it's really easy to sell the neighboring counties ticket.
Well, great. I have of course always more questions, but it is time to move on. So thank you so much, Per. And thanks as always for being part of this project. But stick around for your guitar performance at the end of the.
We said nothing about that.
Oh, we just did. Now you know. So you have some time to prepare. So thank you, Per. We're going to move on to our next presenter, who is Bert Marcellus of Samtrafiken. Samtrafiken is an association owned by all of the 21 Swedish public transit authorities that coordinate public transit at the county level. It's also owned by several public transit organizations, so commercial organizations that operate buses and trains. Samtrafiken has been a part of the Stronger Combined project from the very beginning, And Bert will be discussing open data at Trafiklab, which is an open web portal for transit data. So welcome, Bert.
Welcome. Thanks.
Sorry?
Thank you.
Oh, yeah, thank you. I'm excited to hear about Trafiklab. I'm somewhat familiar with it, and it seems like this is, for anyone that grew up playing SimCity, this is as close to real SimCity as it might get.
Yeah, you just can't plan the traffic yourself, but you can show it to all the travelers, and you can build your own things on it. So it's a way to plug into the real world.
Okay, excellent. Well, we look forward to hearing from you, so thanks a lot.
Right. Okay, so I'm Bert Marcelis and I work with Trafiklab. And for those of you who don't know what Trafiklab is an open data portal in Sweden, where we collect open data for all public transport in entirety of Sweden. And open data for public transport, that's all data around public transport that you can imagine. It's timetables, it's delay information, it is real-time vehicle positions and even route planning. And all of this is offered at no cost for everyone, free to use. And today I will be talking about the value of this open transport data which we offer. There is Trafiklab, and there are also some national access points. So I'll be going a bit more in depth about the difference between those. And then I'll talk about what we make possible with Trafiklab, how we enable innovation, better public transport, and even accessible public transport, thanks to this open data which we are publishing. So, to start off, does open data create value? And it's easy to expect some over-enthusiastic yes from someone who spends his entire day working with just open data for public transport. But the reality is that it depends on a bit more than just the data you are publishing. It is more than just throwing some file online. It's important that your data is accessible, that it's well documented, that it's of a high quality, that it's reliable. If you make it hard for people to access your data, it's going to get less usage, and there's going to be less innovation happening with that data. For example, if you require someone to sign in a written contract, mail it in by snail mail, then it will be less used than data which is just available online directly. Same goes for documentation. If your data is easy to use, if everyone can understand it, it will be used in a better way, and it will be used more often than when it's some cryptic formats which no one understands. The quality, well, the data has to be of a high quality. It has to be correct, and it has to be complete. And at last, when it comes to reliability, then it's important that the data is reliable. If you're going to build a service on, for example, Trafiklab data, you need to know that Trafiklab will be around tomorrow, and you need to know that this data will be available for you, so that you, in peace of mind, can build an application on top of it. And if we look at the European Union, then there is a requirement for national access points. And national access points are these collections of open data sets. It's a way to find open data, to collect all open data for specific categories in one place. And I included a screenshot from trafficdata.sc here. And traffic data is a collection of links. It's a link to the open data with a short description, and well, there you go. And if we now look at these criteria which sets the or create the value for open data, then we see that the documentation is quite limited. When it comes to reliability, well, it is a national portal, but you don't really have a connection with the people behind these data sets, and so on. Now, when we take a look at Trafiklab, we go the extra mile. Can we have next slide? Yeah. We publish extensive documentation in order to make it as easy as possible to use our data. We are clear on how you can download the data, and we make the data available for everyone at just a few clicks. So it's easy to get started. You don't need some approval. And if you have any questions, we have a support forum where we provide direct support to everyone using our data. And we do this in order to make it as easy as possible and to engage as much people as possible with our data in order to create new solutions. And this is what we do. We try to enable innovation, and we do this by offering the same data as transport authorities offer. So if your transport authority has a route planning app, we try to offer exactly the same data so that you can build the same, just better. We have almost no barrier for entry, and this is the accessibility of the data again. It has to be easy to use it. Everyone needs to be able to just download it and start building on it. And we have standard formats, and this is really important. By having these standard formats, one solution that's built for one region works everywhere. If you build a solution for Stockholm, it will even work in the middle of a forest in Värmland. And this allows solutions to be used everywhere, and it sinks the cost for development. It also means that if you have built a solution on our open data in even worldwide standards, you can sell your solution anywhere, which makes it a lot more cost effective to develop such solutions. And well, there's innovation through data by other people who use our data, but there's also innovation in data. And this is another advantage of Trafiklab, because we are concerned about our data, because we really want to create maximum value. We want to ensure that everyone gets the data they need for their solutions. We also improve on our own data the entire time. And this way, we try to always have as much data as possible in the best quality as possible to allow any solutions to be built. And by doing so, we enable better public transport. And at the operator side, this results in better tools for better schedules or better tools for better customer support. And this is something which Jonas will be talking about in the next presentation. Now, at the passenger side, this allows for tailored information channels. You can really get the information that you need as a person by using the applications of your choice or using the information channels of your choice. And we had the Menti question earlier here about route planning apps or public transport apps. And I saw some answers there, such as Google Maps or SE's application, or even Travis. And these are applications which build on open data. So if you're using one of these apps for Swedish public transport, then you're using our Trafiklab data, actually. And this is important, these tailored information channels, because actually public transport is a lot about expectations management. It's about driving buses and driving trains, but also about having people to rely on your public transport. You want people to know that a bus is delayed. You want people to know that their bus is cancelled today. You don't want them to find out. And so you need this passenger trust so that people will rely on your system and so that people can switch to your public transport system. If they know that their bus is cancelled, well, then they can maybe work a day from home, or they can find alternative means of travel, or travel in an alternative way using public transport. If they have to find out at the bus stop, well, they're just going to be frustrated. Bonus points if it's raining and dark outside. And more than just enabling better public transport, we also enable accessible public transport. I'm pretty sure most of the people who are connected to our conference here, they're able to just hop on a train or a bus and travel wherever they want. But now, imagine some location where you want to travel. You sure can travel there by bus or train on yourself completely independently. Would you still be able to make the travel if you had a blindfold on for the entire journey as soon as you left your home? I'll be showing an example developed by Gaia Public Transport, together with RISE and the Organization for Vision Impaired People in Sweden. It's built on Trafiklab data, and it was tested in Östergötland, where they really have an eat-your-own-dog food policy regarding open data. It means that their own mission-critical systems run on public data, on open data, which is coming through Trafiklab, which ensures high quality and really levels the playing field when developing applications. And the reality is, as I said, there are a lot of people with vision loss in Europe. If you look at Sweden, there is maybe 1.5% of the Swedes who suffer from moderately vision loss or worse, with even up to 1 in 1,000 suffering from blindness. And the reality is that these people aren't on public transport in the same rate as other people. When I travel in Stockholm, where there's a really dense public transport network, I can't even remember the last time when I saw someone who was blind taking the public transport, let alone on his own. Now, Gaia has built a solution for this. And their solution tries to overcome a lot of the difficulties which people with vision loss suffer. Take this example imagined here. You're at a bus stop and there are 2 buses stopping behind each other. Which one is yours? It's easy for most of us who just look at the displays on the buses. But if you can't read those displays and you have to go ask every bus driver if this bus is your bus, or you need some personal guidance. And that's exactly what Gaia's application does. You get guidance from the door to the bus stop. And at the bus stop, thanks to open data, the application can inform you of all the buses stopping by, so that you don't have to worry, is this my bus or is this just some random bus passing by? No, you just know that this is another bus, and now there's my bus. It will even guide you to the right bus if there are multiple buses stopped behind each other. And I'm consciously using the word informing and not just saying that the app is talking to you, but because the reality is that, well, the app is just optimized for screen readers so that people can use whatever screen reader or utilities to convey the information from the app in the way that they prefer. And the application will even inform you on the bus about bus stops that you're passing by and when you need to get off. And the reality here is that those people need exactly the same information as you and I. This is exactly the same information as a normal route planner. It's just presented in a different way. It's just made accessible in the way that they need it. And by doing this, this application doesn't only encourage public transport, it doesn't only encourage people to travel more, but it also enables people to start traveling. There are people who couldn't take the bus on their own previously, who, thanks to this application, felt like they could start using public transport. And I think that's a really big thing. I think that's a really big advantage of having the possibility for these applications to be developed. And I think it's something that we all feel a bit extra for with all the people who are in this chain of data and application development and everyone who contributes to this in some way. And it's more than just people who have limited vision. Take, for example, if you're in a wheelchair, then there are standard ways to convey this information about wheelchair accessibility. But the reality is that even with worldwide standards, these standards don't always suffice. And this is, again, the point where Trafiklab shows its additional value compared to these simple lists or collections of open data where data sets are just dumped. Because with Trafiklab, we're engaged in these questions and we try to advocate for better data. We try to advocate for more data. where we work together with all the partners and take any chances we see to lift these problems and to try and solve them. So hopefully in the next presentation, I'll be standing here with to showcase a complete solution for the problems of people who are in a wheelchair, or maybe some other solution which we cannot think of right now. Because when you would have asked me a few years ago what solution I would see in the future based on Trafiklab data, it wouldn't have been this. We can't imagine what people can build on our data, and that's why we leave the building to others. So to conclude, there are two takeaways from this, and it's that open data definitely creates values, but there are pitfalls. You can just dump your data in a low quality somewhere without support, without documentation, and just say, this is it. And well, yeah, you got open data and it creates value, but it does not create as much value as when you really push your open data out, when you document it, when you support it, and when you even have the publishers or even the data creators using their own data, eating their own dog foods in their own buses, in their own trains for their own mission critical systems. And then when we look at accessibility, it's easy to think of accessibility as accessibility of a physical vehicle, as a physical problem. But it includes the ability to independently use these vehicles, this public transport, and to travel on your own. And this is something that open data definitely can enable. So if you don't have any idea of what to build on our data next, well, go on, take our data, it's free and accessible for everyone, and just maybe you can invent the next solution. Thank you.
Wow. Thank you so much, Bert.
Thank you.
First, let me ask if there are any questions from the chat. Okay, and I'll remind our audience that you can contribute questions and comments in the Zoom chat. As always, I have a few questions. Very simple question, first of all. Is there any way for you all at Samtrafiken to keep track of all the different things that people have done with this data?
We have a requirement for API keys, and this is where we actually have to balance the accessibility of our data with well, the need of keeping track. So we have a requirement for API keys where people create their applications, create an account. They request an API key from us, which is automatic and free. And that way we can keep track of what people are doing with the data.
I see. I see. So there may be people out there that are using the data, but they may not have an app that can be accessed without an API key. Is that correct?
They publish their apps.
Yeah.
It's the developers who take care of the API keys.
Okay.
So usually you get the app and you don't need to worry about it.
Okay. Okay. I think this is the first time I've honestly been inspired by a presentation about data.
Thank you.
And I think I would guess there are of course people in this audience right now that understand this and that this is a natural thing to them. But to many transportation experts and certainly transportation consumers, the understanding about how data is shared and how data is accessed is, they just take it for granted. And they just assume that everything will work well. So I think, the opportunity to increase accessibility, physical accessibility, and service accessibility to all types of populations, it's really important. And the fact that it can be connected to data access is something that I think a lot of people need to know. So thank you so much for sharing. I think I have no other questions. So thanks again, Bert.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, so now we're going to move on to our next speaker, which is from Jonas Jarnfeldt, who is the CEO of TrainBrain, which wins the award for the most interesting name of any organization presenting at this conference. I'm sure Jonas will tell us a little about TrainBrain, as well as how open data can operate artificial intelligence transformation in public transport. So welcome, Jonas. Jonas and I had a chance to talk a little bit last night about his product, which it seems like the future is here if you are able to achieve what you're going to achieve. And I have just an introductory question before you get started. We haven't talked about this before, but I'm curious, in your opinion, as someone that is developing smart systems for public transit. Which public transit system in the world do you think is already the smartest?
Ooh, that's a difficult question. There are awards handed out.
Okay.
Yeah. And I mean, typically Singapore is considered to be maybe the premier public transport system in the world. I don't know if it makes it the smartest. They have some advantages. It's a condensed, high-density area. So combined to what we're talking about here with rural areas, the prerequisites are a bit different. But and also Stockholm is also widely considered a super well-functioning public transport and a really smart one too.
Oh, how about Gothenburg?
Wonderful city.
Exactly.
Wonderful
That's
city.
what I thought. That's what I thought. Okay, thanks a lot. We're looking forward to your presentation and learning about Train Brain.
Thanks.
Yep.
All right, super happy to be here. I want to share with you an idea. So that's why I've come here, I think. And this idea has to do with open data. It has to do with open data, and it has to do with time. Time is short when it comes to achieving our climate goals. From a climate perspective, we don't have too much time. That's why I want to talk about an idea on a different way to use open data. This idea can be called machine learning as a service. That's a complicated word, so that's what I'm going to be trying to explain. Machine learning as a service in this context for sustainable mobility. What is sustainable mobility? We've talked about mobility as a service as a way of integrating different forms of mobility in order to provide sustainable mobility, but it's also trains, it's also buses, and we can, with today's technology, operate sustainable mobility in new ways, and we can do this thanks to open data. So let's see if I can show my next slide. Yes, so we have service providers like the rail infrastructure manager in Sweden is called Trafikverket. In Norway, it's called Bane NOR. They oversee all national rail. We have public transport authorities like SL in Stockholm or Västtrafik in Gothenburg. These are the providers of raw data to the open data portals or the open data providers. We heard today from Bert from Trafiklab. In Norway, for example, we have Entur, who are the distributors of open data. This data is then made freely available for the creation and innovation of third-party applications, which is a wonderful thing. We saw today that a lot of people have used, for example, Google Maps, and Google have made a great contribution to the advancement of better traffic information for people all around the globe. So thanks to open data providers, we have services like Google Maps. That's something we can call a trip planner. We also have other types of third-party applications like visualization tools or digital signage. So in one way, this is a sort of a stream enabling application innovation, application development. But there's another way, there's a different way of using open data, and that is by returning the data to the service provider, returning it to the public transport authority in the form of enhanced data in order to create new capabilities. We can, using AI or machine learning, do new things. What is this enhanced data? Well, it's about building machines. These machines can see and understand variance in complex closed systems. This is what's sometimes referred to as pattern recognition. So by building machines that can recognize patterns, they can understand probabilities. And these probabilities can create new capabilities in traffic production. Okay? How can this be used? What is the value of this? Well, we all have a global objective. We need to change how people move around. We need to get people using sustainable choices. That is sort of a global challenge that we have to tackle, and we have to tackle it now. We can't wait 10 years. We need to do it this year. We need to do it next year. We're not going to have time to do it in 10 years. It's now. And there is a problem here. There are a lot of ideas, and this is important. There are a lot of ideas on how to make fossil fuel travel less attractive. We all know about congestion charges or things like that. But there's a problem because there's not enough ideas on how to make the sustainable options that exist today, like buses and trains, more attractive. This is where AI can make a difference, and make a difference today. How do we get people to make the sustainable choice? Well, the sustainable choice has to become more attractive. It has to become better. What is better when it comes to me choosing to take the bus to work or take the car to work? Well, it's making the bus better. It's making the bus more affordable, which means making it more cost-effective to produce bus traffic. It's about making buses more reliable, not too many delays. It's about making the trip faster. And it's about having more trip options, so that when I go to visit my grandmother or when I go to the dentist, there is a sustainable alternative, which is attractive to me. This means using the resources that we have, our common resources in terms of vehicles and drivers, in a smarter way. So in one way, this is welcoming a new colleague on board the team, sort of the traffic production team. If we join forces, man and machine, we can do new things. And the good news is we don't have to wait. We can do these things today. Because there is open data. And by using open data, we can build and train machine learning models that can buy time. Why is this sector sort of slow in adapting digital change, going through digital transformation? Well, it's because there is risk. There is risk in cost. We don't know how much digital transformation in terms of bringing on board machine learning capabilities is going to cost. We don't know how long time it's going to take to get things working, to having new processes in our traffic production, and we don't know what the quality is going to be. If we can eliminate this risk, we can accelerate development. So open data makes it possible for my company, but also for other people, and that's what I want to. That's what I'm super excited about, and I want to spread the word. You can all. People can use open data in a different way. They can pre-train models in order to enable new capabilities within public transport. And this is what we've done through our plug-and-play AI platform. And this is made possible by the ideas of my co-founder, who is maybe Sweden's best-known data scientist, and also a Gothenburg native, of course, Willem Landerholm. And you've all used his ideas, his models today, when you've ordered something online or logged into Google or, God forbid, called the ambulance. His models, around 250 of them, are in production all over the world and in the background in things we do. So what we're doing is we're taking his ideas from different sectors and bringing them to public transport. What are these capabilities that I'm talking about? It's about making better timetables, about understanding robustness. Let's take a train example. In the last 20 years, we've seen a doubling of the amount of train trips that people are taking in Sweden. People are excited about going on trains. That means we need to put in more trains on the existing rail infrastructure. We need to have as high capacity as possible. What does that mean? Well, it means that every time we introduce a new train trip or a new train on the existing rail, we're going to make the system more delay sensitive. So by understanding variance in a real-time analysis and for predictive analysis, we can understand why and where is the system delay sensitive, and we can balance capacity and delay sensitivity, and this is what's called robustness analysis. So we can make better use of the existing resources. We can create better timetables that reduce the risk of people being on a late train. And this is a problem not only in Sweden, I know, but all over the world. People are super frustrated about trains being late. But we can also use this data to understand all movement. What is the real need for transport? If we combine open transport data with SIM card positioning data from mobile operators, we can understand the real need for mobility. We all need to do things. We need to go grocery shopping. We need to go to school. We need to go to preschool. We need to drop off our kids. We need to go to work. These are real needs. And they are reflected in our movement. And our movement is sometimes by foot, sometimes by bicycle, sometimes by bus, sometimes by train, sometimes by car. By using mobile data, we can see how our phones are moving around, and we can use this data to understand, okay, where should we improve public transport? Where is public transport, where does it exist, but people are not really using it? Or where are people moving, but there's no real good option? The third one I would say is real-time simulation. What if a train or a bus is late? Well, then the bus operator is going to try to solve that problem. But that's a human solving the problem. And a human can see maybe the knock-on effects on one or two buses, cannot see the system-wide effects of 2,000 buses being affected by one single bus being late. This is something that the machine can do. The machine can see everything at once. So by joining forces with the machine, we can give humans in traffic operations superpowers. And they can see not only what are the effects right now, system-wide effects, but what will be the system-wide effects in the future, in 10 minutes, in 15 minutes. And we can deploy solutions that are not only solving the micro problem, but what is the best solution for the system as a whole. We can do this by understanding and forecasting how people get on and off buses. We can become more proficient at balancing supply and demand. Okay, how many people will be onboarding bus 4 at stop 3 tomorrow morning at 8 o'clock? If we know that today, then we can, in short-term planning, adjust our resources so that we can better serve that demand tomorrow. That's another capability that this type of idea provides. Another one is real-time optimization. Okay, let's say I have a problem. I have 5 different solutions. Which one is the best one? And what is the smartest way to go from A to B? If we have something like the Bob standard, which we heard about today, it's super interesting because if we have the ID of the person traveling, then we can create huge data sets of people's travel paths, and we can crowdsource smarter ways to get from A to B, not by asking people how they want to travel, not by looking at what are the existing timetables, but by actually seeing how smart people choose smart ways to get from A to B, and then suggest them at the right time and the right context to other people. So these are some of the new capabilities that we can get if we use open data to train models, and then use these models' output, which is probabilities, in traffic production. So how does this work? Well, the train brain computation platform uses real-time positioning data, timetable positioning data, and passenger counting systems in order to predict train movements, bus movements, and on and offboarding, creating all types of different probabilities, such as what is the likely speed of something in the future, or what is the risk of delay, or what is the likely arrival time, or what is the risk of a penalty for an operator being fined for being late. And this can then be communicated in 2 different ways, either as a risk. The risk of being late is 45% for this specific thing, or also in time for a passenger. Okay, your train is late. What is the forecasted new arrival time? And together with Trafikverket, we are now evaluating TrainBrain's delay forecasting for all trains in all of Sweden, which is a breakthrough because rail infrastructure managers do not have fully automated machine learning-based delay forecasting. But it exists. It's just a question of doing it. So these are applications for new types and more reliable traffic informations for passengers. It's about real-time simulation for traffic control. It's about timetables that are less delay sensitive, and it's about having the possibility to create digital twins to work and improve sustainable traffic in a digital world, simulating, testing new things before we deploy them in the real world. So I think this is the idea I wanted to share with you today. Machine learning as a service is a novel concept, but it's a concept that can have a huge impact on making sustainable mobility more attractive, better, and not tomorrow, but today, because we need to make it better now.
Wow. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm applauding, and I know that there, if our participants were in the room with us, we would also get a round of applause.
Thanks, Robbie.
Jonas, how interesting! We are in the future. This is fascinating. It's almost it's almost as if we were experiencing the public transportation version of the movie Minority Report. Right? You've seen this movie, right?
Yeah.
Minority Report, where there's a system that can anticipate a crime or a murder happening before it happens.
Yes.
And in the movie, of course, in that world, we needed it right now because crime was skyrocketing and everything like that. So, I think that there's some parallels here. But there also in that movie, it was really important that there was some human judgment.
Yes.
And this also makes me think of, have you seen the film about AlphaGo, about the board game Go, and they were actually able to create a program that could beat a human. No one ever thought that it could, and it finally did. And so it seems as though trained brain is in a sense helping us overcome what, for example, the bus driver thinks. Okay, it's the best thing for me to hurry to the stop.
Exactly.
But that might have ripple effects. It might have effects that result in the system being de-optimized or effects that no one could predict. My question is, can you imagine a role where a human judgment says, no, this is the wrong thing. We need to question the wisdom of this efficient
absolutely
diagnosis that trained brain has made. Yeah.
Yes, because it's based on pattern recognition. So pattern recognition is only applicable when there are patterns.
Okay.
So you need to have this. Similar events have happened historically, and we've at that time seen these outcomes.
Yeah.
So a lot of times there is absolutely no value created from pattern recognition because the event is unique.
Right.
So what if a truck runs into a bridge and the entire city is at standstill? There's not going to be many patterns of that.
Sure.
And I mean,
are there ways to simulate that? So, for example, if as traffic planners or emergency planners, they begin to use these support systems, I'll call it. I don't know if that's the right term for it. And they say, hey, our trained brain isn't, they don't know, we don't know what it would do. We don't know how it would respond to an unprecedented event. Could that kind of thing be practiced, right?
Our technology, I think, is great.
Yeah.
It's fantastic, but it has a lot of limitations.
Yeah.
And one of the things that it cannot do is to solve problems that are not solvable by pattern recognition. Okay. I'm sure that there are other simulation tools that are super relevant in that context, but not ours.
Yeah. So okay, I'm going to continue here. We have one more minute, but go ahead. First of all, there are no questions from the outside audience. I'm going to keep asking questions. So let's say there is an unprecedented event. Let's say we grab this this system and there's an unprecedented event that, you know, there's an accident or there's something that, is there any way, can you imagine a way for an operator or a decision maker to understand that now the trained brain has given you this decision making power, so that and is there a danger that decision makers would become so used to an algorithm making decisions that they would basically lose the ability to make decisions in real time? I guess my question is, can we become too dependent on this so that we forget how to actually make decisions about our systems?
I think that, you know, this is a nascent technology. Yeah. It's being piloted, but it's not in widespread use. And I think one of the most important things that need to be resolved is how to understand when to listen and when to not listen.
Yeah, exactly.
And that is a super interesting and important question, and one that needs a lot of work, I think.
Yeah, I mean, well, so I can think of a lot of, you know, fun, I imagine, games, right? So instead, so we have, you know, with the Go. Right. So that's the stakes in that are not very high, right? If the human loses to the computer, then okay, wow. And I think when I watched that documentary, what was so fascinating is that there was a whole human team behind that algorithm. It really was a human achievement. But in terms of what was going on from moment to moment, it was a machine. We trusted the machine to do it. But I wonder, you know, for those of you out there that are listening, maybe we can take advantage of the technology and create low-stakes simulations so that we can understand when it's right for human wisdom to step in and say, right now, we're going to let Jonas make the decision rather than the trained brain.
Yeah, and I think a lot of companies in, like for example, H&M in Sweden, when they use machine learning and AI technology, they talk about it internally as artificial intelligence for enhancement of making me as an individual, as a human, more powerful. It's not about the machine making decisions. It's about empowering me with, you know, I can have a broader range of vision, or I can see into the future a little bit.
Sure.
So it's more about enhancing the human than you know, taking a step back and letting the machine do the stuff.
Yeah. Well, thanks again. We're out of time for this session. But you heard it here first. The future is here. Hold on. I'm looking at this camera. The future is here. And it happened. It's stronger combined. Okay, so we're going to take a short break. Thanks again, Jonas. Thank you to our presenters on technology. We have a session coming up on bike sharing. So if you're into bike sharing, be sure to stick around. And we will be back at 10:20. See you then.